Drew's Guitar Shop in Seattle, Washington. I'm doing this video as kind of a little bit of an advertisement for this guitar that I just got done working on. This is a Ibanes Gio Mikro. It's a small guitar, as the name would imply. This is a guitar that came in on a trade. I run a repair shop primarily, but I do occasionally accept trades from folks in lieu of like cash payments for jobs being done. This is a customer who usually pays me with like a bunch of stuff that he picked up at like Goodwill and garage sales and stuff like that. It came to me in pretty rough shape. Somebody had tried doing a little bit of custom paint on it. Looked like it was not so well done using like a paint pen or something. So there's like little black marks all over it and some spots where there was some green and red and some other stuff going on. And it also looked like somebody had taken some like really rough, like some 80 grit sandpaper or something to it and just like really scuffed the hell out of the finish. And, when I first looked at it, I was like, oh man, am I going to be able to turn that into something that looks nice? Am I going to be able to turn it into something that plays? Because, whenever I see something like that, I'm like, oh no, somebody's been messing with this. Is it going to go well? So, I kind of put off working on it for a while because I didn't really want to dive in, but I did dive in eventually. And, I think that... she came out pretty good. So let me go ahead and kind of talk about this guitar a little bit and some of the stuff that's been done to it here. So my deal here is with the guitars that I accept in as trades and then I sell, they're never stock. I don't put things out of the shop here that are like, just kind of run-of-the-mill stuff. Like I don't focus on just kind of getting stuff playing again and then throw it on the shelf. I want to get it playing nice. I want to get everything nice and cherry before I put it up for sale. Because stuff like this, especially if it's bought by a student, I don't want them to be taking it home and dealing with any kind of like weird little idiosyncrasies and stuff that like, they kind of take for normal from guitars when that really isn't the case. I think that kind of leads to bad technique and kind of some weird playing idiosyncrasies as well because you're trying to keep up with your instrument, which isn't really doing what it should. So yeah, I always go through these things and I always upgrade stuff and I do some work on stuff. So I'll take this from one end to the other and we'll talk about everything that got done to it. So the first thing that I did was I pulled the old string trees out because they're awful. They're the kind of, bent house sort without the dimple in the middle. Those things tend to grab onto strings and just, kind of kink them a little bit and not let things tune. If you've ever dealt with like a Strat style guitar, especially like a cheap one, like a Squire or something that just didn't hold tune on like these top four strings, a lot of times it's actually the string trees that are hanging up the strings, because what'll happen is that you're tightening this area over here, but this area doesn't move as much as it should. And so as you play, that tension kind of equalizes and you either go sharp or you go flat, depending on which way you're turning the tuner. So I wanted to pull those off and replace them with rollers, which is kind of standard for stuff that I touch here. The next thing that I did was I went ahead and pulled the cheap plastic nut out. The nut that was in here was basically shot anyway, and I'd never leave the stock plastic nuts in anything, so I pulled that out, replaced it with a custom cut bone one. This is a piece cut from a blank here specifically for this guitar. When I'm cutting a nut for a guitar, like, this is the tool we're talking about. So, I want to make sure that it's, pretty accurate to the neck that you're dealing with. I'm not a fan of putting like pre-cut stuff on here just because like the string distances are always a little wonky, and they just don't feel right to me. So you get the benefits of that bone nut. So, better tuning stability, you get, better tone and open position. It's going to live longer than a lot of those plastic nuts, and so you get a number of years more out of this than you would out of like a cheap PVC nut. It just looks nicer, it feels nicer, and it works better. All around a good improvement. Kind of thing that normally a shop would charge like $50-$70 for. These I don't even mention because that's like in the tens of dollars, but like this is kind of a big deal. Also went through and did a level crown polish on the frets. The frets were a little worn, but I kind of have a policy of just kind of going in and just doing a level crown polish anyway, usually on the guitars that I sell here. The only time that I don't do that is if I get something higher end in, like a Martin or something, and I go through the frets. I'm like, okay, these are all right. But generally speaking, especially for like student grade stuff, there's usually a little bit of unevenness in the frets, and I want to go through and make sure they're all glued down, make sure they're leveled on top, and then go through and recrown them on top so that you have a nice surface that's right in the center of the fret that your string is making contact with and going all the way down. So, they feel nicer on the sides, which is nice. So you're not going to be catching your hand on here and kind of cutting yourself, because that's a problem on some student end guitars. And they're all perfectly flat, so you're not going to have any of the weird fret buzzing problems that kind of occur on some guitars. One of the reasons why, like, when you get like a cheap student guitar at like Guitar Center, why the action's always like super high on it, it's because that high action is usually hiding sloppy fretwork. Like if they lowered the action any more on it, like you're gonna have to like actually do some real fretwork. And generally that's what I tell people when they bring guitars like that to me. I'm like, okay, yeah, we can do a setup on this and we can bring the strings down nice and low, but I'm going to look at these frets first, and usually I find that there's some issues with the frets, and so I'm a little iffy on setting strings down real nice and low. But that being said, the next part of this that I'm going to talk about is the setup. The setup on this guitar is a little bit modified from what I would usually do on an electric guitar just because of the short scale length, and so the strings are just a little bit higher than they would be on a normal electric guitar, something that actually, like an actual full-size Ibanez that had that like 25.5-inch scale. The reason being that, at this length, at this scale length, we're dealing with a lot more slackness in the strings. So at the same time that the strings are a little bit higher, it really isn't something that you feel, because the strings themselves tuned down to E are, have a lot less tension than they would at a full scale length. And so it's not really something you feel, but I also wanted to make sure that I was going through here and, really eliminating any buzz that this might have. And so you can really wail on this thing, get all that headroom advantage without really, coming down and rattling on these frets, which is nice. Went ahead and, set the pickup heights perfectly, set the string radius perfectly. String height, went ahead and adjusted the neck to where it should be, and also gave this a little bit more relief than I usually give guitars, again because of that short scale length. When you do setups on guitars, they're never like perfect by the numbers. Every single guitar is the same. You got to kind of take some of these things into account, so like scale length and the radius on the neck and some other stuff. So yeah, a little bit more relief on one of these short little guys. It's pretty helpful. Also went ahead and installed shielding tape in here. So these electronics are going to be really nice and quiet. And to make them even nicer and quieter, I went in and installed a star ground. A star ground is what you call it when you take the ground from all of the different parts of the electronic system and you ground them all to a common point. I like to use the volume because that's usually where the pickups are connected via their ground to the system. And so what I do is I basically if there's something kind of going to random locations, I'll take the other things and I'll wire them to that thing and kind of cut out the old grounds and stuff. And this serves to kind of help quiet audio circuits down. Look up star grounding. You'll find a bunch of Google articles about it. It's some pretty cool stuff. It's something I've been practicing here for years. Especially like when somebody brings in something that's, a noisy guitar. This is a humbucker guitar, so I'm not really that worried about it, but on strats and stuff like that, every little bit of quietness you can get is nice. I also went ahead and upgraded the tone pot. The tone pot that was in here was busted. That was another thing I was looking at when it came in, because it wasn't just broken, the shaft had broken off. So the threads themselves were busted, and it was just kind of hanging down there. So I replaced that pot and also put in an orange drop cap that I had kind of laying around here that's at the right value. And so you got this really nice tone roll off in this thing. Very, very smooth. One of the things that I'll say about using these orange drops, people will talk about hearing a difference in the tone as normal. And maybe there's a little bit of that. To me, what the orange drops do is they really give you kind of a nice roll off. So like when you're talking about like, some cheap Strat copy that has like one of those little green guys in it or a little disc cap, what you'll find a lot of times is that you're turning, and then all of a sudden it just dumps. And you're like, shit, like I wish I had something in between like full on and dump. This is what gives you that. And so the nice thing about these caps is that like you got 10 numbers on here, unless you're Spinal Tap, in which case you have 11. And what you can do is you can get a little bit of something different out of each of these number settings, which is just super, super nice. So you got a lot of subtlety that you can work with there. Yeah, as far as the other things that went on with this guitar, you might notice that there's no weird paint stains everywhere on here. There are a couple of spots where the finish has gone through. Those are spots that were like that when I got it, unfortunately. But what I decided to do with this guitar, since it was scuffed up already, is I looked at it and I was like, well, we can just kind of mechanically remove that paint and stuff with some wet sanding. And in the same process, we can kind of give this a cool finish. And so what I've done is I've left this finish as a matte white, which I think looks really, really cool. Like it's a very striking look on an Ibanez, because usually these guitars are so shiny and so bright. This one here, it's just a very, very cool cream, not cream colored, but kind of a very creamy white, which I really like. Like looking at this thing from a distance, I really think that it looks like a pretty sharp guitar. It's nice. The tuners are sealed tuners. There's one Godo on there that looks like it went on because a tuner probably got hit with something. The tuner that was replaced was this High E, which is right here at the end of the headstock, so that was likely like damaged at some point and pulled off and replaced with this Godo. The rest of them are some kind of something, generic somethings. It's a string through body, so if you wanted sustain, this could give it to you. Particularly if you wanted me to set this guitar up to play a little higher. Usually with these short scale guitars, what I kind of recommend if people want like super nice low action on them is to let me tune them up to something different. So usually what we'll do is we'll put it side by side with like its full size, compatriot, and we'll kind of figure out where that scale length lies on the fretboard, and then we'll kind of tune it to somewhere around that fret. So I have a little tiny guitar at home that I have tuned to A, and tuned to A, the thing just punches, and I'm able to get the action down super nice and low because it's nice and tight. With something like this, wouldn't probably go up to A, but you might get something else out of it, and you might be able to get some really interesting tones. And with this tight strings, and even as is, string through the body is just great for sustain anyway. Like if we strum this thing and kind of let it ring out. I mean, it's still going. So, it's got a lot there. And that's actually set on the 8 on that tone cap, open wide. You can hear that difference, right? Set it down to 6. Set it down to 4. So like you're seeing, sorry, there's trains here doing stuff. But you can see that there's kind of a difference, between those settings. It's subtle, but it's there. Maybe you want that subtlety. Maybe you want that level of control. So, it's a pretty cool guitar. I like it a lot. I like that it's small and compact. This would make a great little travel guitar for somebody who's like a more experienced player. It would be a great option for somebody who's like a younger player. When I was a guitar teacher, one of the things that bothered me was when parents parents would bring their little kids in, and the little kid is struggling to reach the end of the headstock and do their cowboy chords because, like, you know, the guitar is bigger than it should be for them. You know, something like this is a great thing in those instances to give to somebody who's like a little too young, a little too small to reach the end of the headstock, because this is actually going to be kind of more appropriately sized. You know, like I said, everything that's you know, could be problematic with this has been gone through. I also do warranties on the instruments that I sell here, so like if you find a problem with it, like, you know, within like the first couple of years of owning it, just bring it in, and I'll see what I can do for it. Especially if it's something like a setup that you want different, that's the kind of thing that I cover. Or if it's something that I installed that like needs to be replaced, like for some reason like the nut wears out too quickly or something like that. Definitely willing to help. I can't cover stuff like it falling down, like dropping it down the stairs, or like it running it over with your car, but like, you know, within reason, you know, I can definitely help somebody out with an instrument that's been purchased here, and I'm happy to do it. Really like that tone roll off. Just can't get over the difference when I replace one of those cheap little caps. Nice volume roll off too, actually. I didn't replace this cap, it just happens to be, or this pot, it just happens to be a nice pot. So that's cool. So you got 3 settings. You got bridge, middle, neck, kind of standard fare. As far as I could tell, the pickups are 2 conductors. So, you know, pretty much your standard wiring setup is what this thing is gonna want to do. But it'll do that really well. It's nice and comfortable to play. Very nice neck profile. Nice, comfortable 16-inch radius. Well, the upgrades and everything, this guitar plays and sounds great. So, yeah, if you're interested and you want to pick this guitar up, I'm going to have a link down in the description that is going to go to the reverb page for this instrument. If that link is still going to something that's active, the guitar is still for sale. If the link is not active, it is no longer for sale. So you can send me a message and ask me what I have available, but it probably won't be this guitar. So, you know, just trying to head that off. The other videos that I have on my channel are more geared towards guitar repair and like tips and tricks for players and things. And so if you're into that kind of stuff, definitely check out the rest of my channel. I've got a lot of videos like that. You know, link them around to your friends. You know, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and all that good stuff. You know, and if you find those videos informative, I also have links down in the down below part to my Patreon and my Ko-Fi, and also a link to my website, which has my pricing info and my contact info, as well as a page that I wrote up for caring for stringed instruments. So if you're in here watching this, either you're interested in getting one, or you already have some stringed instruments that you're probably caring for, and so there might be something in there for you, even if you've been playing for a long time. You know, I've been doing this for a long time, so I've seen a lot of stuff that can go wrong with guitars and other string instruments. So anyway, this has been Drew Jones of Drew's Guitar Shop, showing off the Ibanez Gio Mikro guitar. I think it's pretty cool. I'll play out.